All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Wednesday, September 25th of 2024. Looking ahead, we have a 9-game MLB main slate set to get underway in about 3 hours here. We have Thursday Night Football tomorrow, and then we also have our build review show at 5 p.m. Eastern today. So should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use our SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel on our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and wanting to get access to that channel, there was a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim teams. Can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in and get your questions answered. But one more note in regards to the build review show. That show will go live at 5 p.m. Eastern. Like I mentioned, we do have one person signed up today, do have some spots open. So if anybody wants to get some builds reviewed from this past week, all you got to do is drop your DK username in the office hours channel in our Discord server. I can pull you up on stream and give you some personalized feedback and advice. All right, let's get SaberSim pulled up. Let's jump into our first question here. First question said, so I have noticed when performing a stock build, the ownership defaults to flagship MME. There is the option with the gear symbol to change this depending on your type of contest, MME, 20 max, single entry, as well as stakes, low, medium, high. I've never seen the coaches talk about this in teaching SS. Is this something that should be adjusted before creating a build, or is it just to use after for predicting leverage purposes? Good question here. So if you go to the My Own column here, if you're on SaberSim Ultimate, you're going to have all these different options, right? We use these different options in the contest sim by default. So if you upload a CSV file, all of these are tied to different types of contests based on entry fee, based on number of entries, etc. here, right? So if I go back to, say, Sunday, I think I have a CSV here. Let's check. Where would I have one? Okay, so here's an example from a Thursday to Monday slate, right? In the past, when you upload your CSV and you're using the contest sims, it's automatically going to fill in all of this data based on how many entries you had, what the stakes of the contest were, etc. Right? So this is mainly to be used there. But as far as what you can do with it and how it works, right? So we go back to today's slate. So the My Own column, first off, has no effect on how the lineups are built, okay? The lineups are only using correlation and sim diversity. We used to have a third slider a while ago, like over a year, that was called ownership fade, but we removed it because we were like accounting for ownership in the sliders, and then we were also accounting for it with Saber score, and we basically wanted to get rid of double counting, right? So the field lineups, remember, like taking it back here, the field lineups and the ownership build are what in this one, you know, flagship MME ownership build, Chris Sale's exposure ends up being 28.6%. And then that becomes his ownership projection, right? And then let's say we're playing a high stakes single entry. Well, in that contest, based on the different parameters and things like that, his exposure comes in at 35.7%, right? So these are just exposures in different ownership builds. And we've done a lot of back testing to figure out how player exposures change based on the stakes and the number of entries that are allowed in a contest. So that's just a little background on where these come from. So first thing, like I said, right, has no effect on the lineups that are built. It does have an effect on a few things post-build, which we'll talk about right now. And let me just make two adjustments to projections, kick off some lineups. So the things that my own column will have an effect on are the sum ownership of the lineup and also the adjusted ownership of the lineup. Therefore, it will impact the Saber score outputs, right? So, for instance, if I come in here and we're just going to look at ownership specifically. So right now, the summary statistics underneath each lineup, which you see like this sum ownership, is 49%. This is a reflection, and we'll actually, let's just do projected score. That way this lineup stays consistent. So we have this top projected score lineup, sum owned 286%, right? This is reading it off of the current ownership projections. So if I change the ownership from high stakes single entry to low stakes 20 max, well, we see that like Kevin Gosman came down from like 39% to 29% to 27%. We saw Sale went from like 35 to 29. Well, then now that sum ownership gets updated as well, right? So then we can see the sum ownership values in the lineup get updated, and therefore the summary statistic gets updated as well. So the sum ownership of this top lineup goes to 210% from, it was previously at 286%, right? So it comes down significantly. So if you're doing any type of like sum ownership rules or sum ownership post-build filters or anything like that, then it can have an effect changing this to whatever contest you're optimizing for. Second thing it has an impact on is the Saber score of the lineup. So this is probably, say we're doing like a large slate, 10 to 50K Saber score. You know, we are using a negative weight on average adjusted ownership, and the ownership projections have an impact on the adjusted ownership, right? Adjusted ownership is looking at the player's ownership, looking at their range of outcomes, and then basically assigning them a score here, right? So right now, let's use Kevin Gosman again. Gosman's ownership is 39%. His adjusted ownership is 43%. When I change him from high stakes single entry to low stakes 20 max, both of those values come down, and they end up being both about even now, right? So his ownership is like 27%, but his adjusted ownership is now 29. So a lot closer than when those values are higher. So this will can have an impact on how many lineups Kevin Gosman gets into, because his adjusted ownership ends up being lower. So if you're using Saber score, I think it can be useful to change it if you are mostly playing low stakes contests. If you are doing rules around some ownership, filters around some ownership, and you are mostly playing like a low stakes contest, you can also change it to get some additional benefit there. But good question. All right, next question. Say I'm playing one low stakes single entry contest already loaded as a contest sim, but want to play a lineup that also grades out well against medium and high stakes fields. Would I create two additional custom contest sims, one for medium stakes, one for high stakes, then sorting by target ROI would reflect the average ROI of all three contest sims? Okay, good question. So basically it would look like this. So we would go to the contest sim, say we're playing, the 121, right? So I'm going to come in here, add a custom contest sim, and I'm going to basically do this 3 times. What is this called? The battery. So I'm going to go and do the battery. I'm going to do a high stakes single entry, and then I'm just going to call this one. I'm going to come in and do another one, say medium stakes single entry, go and get the battery, call this 2. And then maybe I want to do low stakes single entry, get the battery, call this 3, right? So now I have 3 contest sims with slightly different ownerships, but all single entry type contests that I'm going to use, right? And the idea here is basically if the lineup grades out good in all 3, then it's probably a stronger lineup because I am on board with this line of thinking here. So let's run this, right? So we're going to run the contest sims that we've now set up. So I think the biggest problem here is that I don't actually have an entry for this contest. But effectively, what you would be doing here is, and you could set this up as like a custom metric as well. But what you would be doing is, okay, I'm going to take the ROI value from contest sim 1. I'm going to take the ROI value from contest sim 2. And I'm going to take the ROI value from contest sim 3, right? And you're basically adding all of these up and using that as, you would basically be using, you would want to use like the average, which the target contest ROI would not achieve because it would be zoning in on one of the specific contest sims. So basically say you have an entry file, right? If I go back to contest, you go and you create 2 additional contest sims. And then if you go back to the build and then you sort by target contest ROI, it's going to be sorting by the ROI for the primary contest sim, not the average of all 3. Now, what I would probably recommend here is taking a little bit different approach where you basically do a filter, which I think this would just in general be better. So basically set up a filter where it says ROI greater than 0 for all 3 contest sims. Which I'm doing right now. And then sort the lineups that are left by the actual contest's ROI. So what you get here is like, if there are lineups that are positive ROI in the primary contest sim, but grade out badly in the other ones, then those go into the trash. But for the lineups that grade out positive across all 3, you're then going to grade those by the specific contest sim with the specific contests set of field lineups. So I think that is a better approach than trying to average out all 3 ROIs and sort by that. So this is the approach that I would recommend as of right now. But let me know if there's any follow-up there. All right. I've noticed that aggregate metrics do not show for tennis or F1 since the UI update. Is that in the work or was it disabled since I have to go back to the old SS to add them, then go back to the new one? It is not showing, but the only way I know it is if I change them in uniques on the old, it shows on the new. Thanks. I haven't seen this or any other reports of it, so let's just go and do a test. So let's say it looks like there's a tennis slate tonight. Let's see if there are projections up. Yeah, it looks like every match has projections and ownership. So let's just make a custom contest sim for the line painter. Go to our build. We'll build 500 lineups. Make our projection adjustments. Kick this off. And we're just going to let these lineups run. Lineups should be done shortly here, and they are. Great. So I'm seeing the aggregate metrics right away, right? So that tells me that they're here. Now, if you are not seeing them, right, if they are gone, it looks like this, where it just says my lineups. You don't see a gear icon. You don't see anything. What you need to do is go to my lineups and right click on it. And then you're going to get this aggregate metric pop up where you can click it and then go and add stuff. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to add average projection, right? And then I save it, and then boom, now it shows up. Now the gear icon is available for me to add any additional aggregate metrics. So this was a recent change, probably like a week ago or so. So I would assume that this is probably what you're running into. So if you go and do that right click option, which you can only do if the aggregate metrics aren't present, then you should be all set. So try that out. All right. Those were all of our initial questions here. And it looks like we're all caught up here at the moment. So why don't we go build some lineups for MLB today and do an app demo while we wait for any more questions to roll in here. But reminder, we do have our build review show going live in about 45 minutes. Still time to sign up. Just drop your DK username in the office hours channel on our Discord server, and I will add you to the queue. But first things first, would always be checking weather. You could just Google Roto Grinders MLB weather, and they have a free weather dashboard run by Kevin Roth. Very, very good weather resource. But after that, making my 2 adjustments, 2 projections. I like to turn on the default don't use batters against opposing pitchers rule. And something else I like to do is just set like a baseline, like a bottom filter for pitchers here, right? So like what I would do is I would just come in here and probably set this. I don't know. 10 seems like a fine number. You know, you could do projections or you could do it by pitches. However you want to do it is like fine. So I had this one, pitchers greater than 70. If you're on like the old pro plan or the ultimate plan, you could have the detailed stat with pitches. If you're not, you could just use like a projection filter just to get rid of some of these like lowest players here. But I think projections greater than 70 works for me. So build lineups is good. In the meantime, while these lineups build, Noah asks, hey, any chance to see the PGA President Cup lines since pricing came out? Very interested to see what it thinks. So just a note here, we don't support the President's Cup, anything where it's like team format or like alternating or anything like that. We're not going to be able to support with Sims. So right now, you can expect no support for President's Cup as far as like projections and stuff. The slates are in the app. So if you have custom projections, you should be able to use our optimizer mode to build lineups. So just a heads up there. All right, coming back here. Let's see. So why don't we follow through with like a single entry build here, right? I'll basically demo what I was talking about. So I'm going to come in here, run some contest sims for the 3 contest sims that I've set up. All right, contest sim just finished. So then what I would do is I would come in here and sort by the contest sim, like the primary one, which was our number 1, because it was a high stakes single entry. And then I would add the filters for ROI greater than 0 for the 3 contest sims I set up. That brings me down to like 100 lineups. Great. One other thing I would do personally here, I like to cut off like the bottom projected score lineups. So I'm going to say projected score greater than, I don't know, we can start with 95, maybe is a good number, right? And the number isn't so as important as the effect that it has. So we're trying to get rid of like the bottom 10 to 20% of lineups here. So this seems like a little high. Let's bring it down 93, maybe a little lower. Like 91.5 might be the number. All right, let's try 91. 91's close enough. So 91 projected score, ROI filter. Those end up overlapping, right? So it looks like the bottom projected lineups end up all being captured by the ROI filter, just as a talking point there. All right, so now that I need one lineup, right? The way I like to do this is I like to set lineups a little bit higher. So let's say 5 lineups. And I'm going to put 2 aggregate metrics, average projection, average ROI. Now, some people might think I'm crazy for doing it this way, but this is the way I like to do it. So what I want to do is I want to find 5 lineups that are have some differences, but similar metrics, and basically like randomly pick one. So at 1 min unique, my top 5 lineups, average projection 100.7, average ROI 29%. Projection goes down 0.2 at 2 uniques. ROI goes down 1%, so I think that's fine. Go down a little bit further. ROI actually went up. I'm sorry, projection went up. ROI went down 1 more %. So 3 seems okay. Let's try 4. 4 seems okay. 5. 5 seems good. Let's try 6. Okay, 6 I would probably not do. So there's like a pretty big projection drop off from like 5 to 6. It's like 3 points and like 2.5 points from our initial. So I would stop at 5. Now this leaves us with lineups 1, lineups 3, lineup 5, lineup 6, and lineup 8, right? These lineups all have at least 5 players different from each other. So half of the players in the lineup are going to be different from each. Now, I like to start here, and what you could do, you could either go through here and basically handpick the lineup that you think looks the best, or, you know, something I like to do is I'll just come in here, you know, if I'm building one lineup, say, I think all these lineups are fairly similar. They're all good. They have a pretty close average ROI, pretty close average projection. I'm fine with any of them. And then I would just come in here and basically unique random fill them. So I would change my fill method to unique random, and I might just be happy playing any one of these 5, right? So that's something I'll do. I've seen other users do this as well, or like talk about doing this. And I think it's a fine approach, right? Like, what is so different between a lineup that is 150% ROI versus like 148%, right? Like, they're probably not that different at the end of the day as far as like expectation. So, you know, just kind of leave it up to chance, whatever one ends up in my lineup. So this is how I'd be building lineups for a single entry contest where I need one exact lineup. But those are my thoughts there. All right, taking another peek here. No additional questions in the Discord or the YouTube chat. So I think we're going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back in about 35 minutes for our build review show. So until then, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.